I was so tired of living in survival mode, constantly planning, grading, and switching gears between classes. What finally saved me? A simple planning system that works across preps and actually gives me back time. I used to stay up after my kids had gone to bed to get my planning and grading and everything else done. Now, you might already be doing that, or you might still be doing that. But I have to admit, there were times that it was great because they fell asleep quickly. But there were other times that I would get really irritable or stressed out because I could see the time ticking away and know that I was going to have to stay up later in order to get my planning done. And let's just say that was not great for the bedtime routine and didn't really give me a lot of time to spend quality time with my children and enjoy those quiet bedtime moments. I'm curious, if you are a multi-prep teacher, give us in the comments what classes you're teaching. I'd love to see the variety and mix of classes that we get. One of the things that comes along with being a multiple prep teacher is the constant mental switching gears between not only the different classes, the different students that are in each of them, but the different subjects and content areas that you might be teaching from day to day. So perhaps you have one class where you're doing a lot of work, and then another class where it's pretty chill because the students are working on a project. When I first started teaching, I was used to planning in silos. I didn't know any better. I would plan one class and I would do the entire unit from beginning to end. As I started moving through my career, I realized I needed to switch things up, and one of the ways was then to shorten that amount of time. Now, that was just one simple switch that I made. Instead of doing the entire unit all at once, I would do a few days to a week so that it was a lot smaller to handle. And then I realized I should probably be stacking some systems. If I was doing something in one class, could I be doing something in another class as well without having to do as much work? Could I repurpose? Could I use something from here to there? Could I have preps or protocols or strategies that I was using from one class to another that I repeated? The other thing that I did was I adopted a planning routine and a structure that I could use for every prep. Because when I first started teaching, I would have different curriculums, or some of my classes had curriculums, others did not. And so I was working very independently. Goes back to the silos. I was having one class was being planned this way, another class was being planned this way. I was able to maybe get slide decks from another teacher. I had all of these, so then I was teaching in their format. And it wasn't until I figured out and adopted my own planning routine that now I call introduce, practice, produce, and then applied that to all of my classes, regardless of whether or not I had a curriculum, that I ended up being more successful, because then I could start strategizing on how I planned for those classes instead of being confused and adding to my mental fatigue by having so many different workflows. Then I realized with introduce, practice, produce that it could be shrunk or it could be expanded depending on the amount of time I had. I could use introduce, practice, produce several times during a class period, or I can also look at it and say that this lesson as a whole is an introduce type lesson, this is a practice type lesson, and this is a produce type lesson. So that if I was having students work on projects, then more likely than not, they were doing a produce lesson, which really didn't require a whole ton out of me because I was setting that aside. So I was being able to now reutilize, restack that same system, but make it small or make it large. This saved my sanity because I had a lot less decision fatigue. I was really being strategic in thinking about my energy as it went throughout the day, but also throughout the week, even the months. And I was able to plan around my energy, but still support my students along the way. My routines and my weekly practice became repeatable, and it also became predictable, which was good for me and my students. Regardless of whether or not the content was changing, the structure stayed the same. You may have heard that you need to switch it up for students, but quite honestly, students love to keep things the same. They love structure. They love routine. They love predictability. They love to know what's going on. You do have to switch things up a little bit, but not to the extent that you might feel by looking at Instagram or even going onto a Facebook group. Then I was starting to add these same concepts into things like my sub plans, so that my sub plans follow the exact same structure that it would if I were there, but with a little bit more extra support, because very likely the substitute that I had arranged for that day had no idea about any of my content. But having that same structure there helped my students and also helped my subs. And I've actually recreated that in my sub plan sidekick, which is one of my AI teaching assistants. So I've mentioned this a little bit already, but one of the things that we as teachers get wrong is we plan every prep separately. We plan it in silos with our blinders on, so we're not paying attention to what is happening in any of the other courses. Now, this leads to having assignments all on the same day, which at the moment may not be bad, but when you're at home grading and now you have twice the amount of work than you were expecting, then that really causes a lot of issues. Or you spend hours creating the perfect resource or perfect worksheet or perfect whatever for your class. And let's not forget that you might spend the exact same amount of time just searching for something that's perfect, that can only be applied to one class. The truth is, a good enough system used consistently will beat a custom resource anytime. Simple does not equal lazy. Simple equals sustainable. One of my big beliefs is that simple systems protect your evenings. If we go back to when I was stressed out during my bedtime routines with my children, now my systems allow me to enjoy my evenings, enjoy my bedtimes, enjoy being able to read 1, 2, 3 more stories without being stressed because I already know what to expect the following day. Now that I look back, I wasn't a lazy teacher. I was trying to be a present mom and a good teacher. So I designed systems that let you do both. And that is going to be in any of the AI assistants that I have. And currently, I have the Teacher Time Back Trio. If you've ever wished that you had a sidekick who could help you grade faster, handle early finishers, and make subplans in 5 minutes flat, that's exactly why I created the Teaching Time Back Trio. It includes the Feedback Fairy, the Bell-to-Bell Buddy, and the Subplan Sidekick. Each one built to save your sanity without sacrificing student learning. Get it in the link in the description.